I love the quote that says the kids who need love the most often ask for it in the most unloving ways, but sometimes it's the little things that make the most lasting impact. It's the hug in the morning, it's the safe space, it's the routine. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves as educators to be all of the things, right? And we want to be all of the things for our kids when we see them in crisis or when we see them in need. But I think it's important that we don't underestimate the impact of just the power of true connection and hope and the lasting impact that it can create.
Welcome to Oxygen for Educators, part of the Ripple Maker Project. I'm one of your hosts, Michelle Kinder, and you'll meet Chris Kent Phelps in just a bit. It's our hope to bring you thought-provoking, unscripted conversations full of actionable ideas to fuel your important work in the world. Thanks for tuning in. This space is for you. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Michelle. How are you today in your blue?
I know, we double blued it, which is very weird. Often we are both wearing black or white, which is embarrassing because that's kind of all we wear. But for us to both show up looking like blueberries, as you said, that's next level.
Oh, all right. Well, carry on.
This is special. This person that everyone's about to meet, Tausha Nickleberry, touched my heart from the first time we met her. There's something coming off of her that is just so authentic. And to me, it just reminds me of the kind of texture that goes hand in hand with challenge, that I just find myself drawn to people who have been through stuff and somehow transmute that into good in the world. And I feel that so strongly with Tasha.
Agree. Shall I share her bio?
Please.
Okay. So Tasha is a consultant at the Education Service Center in Region 20 in Texas, where she leads the Stronger Connections grant. It's worth sharing for those who don't know that grant, the Stronger Connections grant, is designed to enhance non-academic supports and cultivate positive climate and culture within schools, which is something that Tasha believes in wholeheartedly, and she makes that very clear in the interview that I know it'll touch people. She has 17 years of experience in the educational system. She's been classroom teacher, instructional coach, assistant principal, and campus principal. So she has a very unique perspective of the industry. Interestingly, she has a background in criminal justice. She started in CPS and was a supervisor for CASA. I loved knowing that. I was a CASA volunteer years ago, and I can see her being in that system doing that work because she has an unwavering commitment to make a difference in the lives of others. And as you'll learn in the interview, she's also the future author of Be the One.
Exactly. At least in our fantasy worlds, that book is coming.
We're willing it to be.
We should also give a shout out to Susan Salinas, who is her partner at Educational Service Center 20, but her work is in critical incident preparedness and response. So she's had a big part in supporting communities impacted by the flooding. And, I think she's one of so many incredible people in Texas right now trying to show up for people that are really hurting. So shout out to Susan as well.
And a shout out to you, because they specifically talked about in the pre-interview that I got a glimpse of that they were leveraging your podcast for the flood victims. So that was nice to hear.
Yeah, it was nice to hear. And we loved them. We got to meet them in person, and it was one of those 2-minute conversations that you wished was 2 hours, which doesn't happen to me that often. Usually I'm like, oh my God, I'm introverted out in about 90 seconds.
I'm out of words.
Let's meet Tasha.
Let's do it.
Hi, Tasha. Welcome.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you.
Well, I want the listeners to hear this. I was telling you offline that I basically jumped out of bed this morning because I was so excited to get to visit with you and for people to hear you and just be exposed to your spirit and your lens on this world.
Thank you. Thank you. That means so incredibly much to me. I thank you.
Well,
and likewise, I always enjoy seeing you and sharing a space and truly just feeling inspired, or a hug, as we were just talking, a hug through the camera and through the phone. You feel it in your presence. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Here we go. I'm excited. I want to start with your story, which I think we could talk 5 hours about your story because I know a bit about it. There's so much complexity and so much there. So take your time, but maybe like really zero in on how your story has made it so clear to you the powerful impact educators have on kids' lives. But you tell the story as you wish, and we'll go along for the ride.
Okay. Well, thank you. So the story begins many years ago. Truly, thinking back to my story of where it began, and then there was some pivotal moments of when, way later in my journey, that I realized that there was a connection and there was a greater purpose for my story, and to share that. And to be honest, that's been in more recent times. But as far as the story itself and kind of where it began, I grew up here in Texas, kind of in the North Texas area, and lived a challenging childhood. I would say I didn't live in a home that was full of happy. There was a lot of domestic violence. It was filled with alcoholism, a lot of just uncertainty and in turmoil. And I was the oldest of 3 kids in the home, and there's quite a bit of age gap in between us. And so I very quickly not only became a caretaker for my younger siblings, but I will say I was kind of that caretaker, mediator, helper in between my parents as well. And so that is just where a lot of my childhood memories and upbringing is just centered on, and kind of what to this day sticks with me and ingrained, my own childhood memories. Not a lot of happy.
That's such a heavy load. And I can tell you've thought a lot about it and done your own work, that you can articulate that not only did you have to become basically a parent, at what age?
I am 6 years older than my sister, and then 11 years older than my brother.
So essentially at 6, you felt some parenting responsibility for an infant. And then the rest of your young childhood, and the fact that you understand how much that impacted you. But I haven't heard a lot of people zero in and articulate the way you did the load of the mediator that you also had. So thank you for knowing yourself that well and for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Those are the pieces that are, ingrained in me. I remember as a kid, even folks telling me, are you going to be, end up and be a counselor? Are you going to be an attorney? Like that was a lot of what it felt like, of trying to bring calm to a sense of crazy, or trying to fix. I think there's a lot of that while I did not end up in an attorney space or in a space of being a counselor, in a sense of a leadership role, and a lot of that, personality traits and characteristics. I think that there's a lot of that that's ingrained from a young age. And I honestly, as a kid, did those things pretty well and took care of the things and tried to keep the peace. And I played school. I did well at school. I was a, pretty high performing student. And that really was the story for about 15, 16 years of age. And then that 16-year-old Tasha, if you will, was a big pivotal moment where a lot of things changed. And I said I did those things well, and I did until I didn't. And then when I didn't, everything changed. And I think it was really a rebellious time, in my life where I rebelled against all of it. And that changed, my behavior, my decision making, my school attendance. I quit sports. I had been a student athlete most of my childhood, and then truancy issues, not going to class. I mean, there was just my friend group changed. I mean, there was just a lot of change that happened in a very short period of time. A lot of, I'm sure, just red flags, if you will. But within that, I, at 16 years of age, found out that I was was pregnant with my son. And that obviously was a lot of turmoil in the home, surrounding that and what that would mean and what that would look like. But for me, it became a different purpose for me. And it truly became that hope, I think, that I needed to choose a better life and create a better life and path, not only for myself, but for my, unborn child at that point, and someone else that was truly counting on me. And I wanted a different story for him. And so at 16, I enrolled in a different school within our community that was really an alternative school setting, for kids like me, kids who needed a non-traditional pathway, kids that were experiencing challenges and just hardships in life. It allowed for you to accelerate some credit hours, work at your own pace. Our school district, provided the school in the setting. And so we were able to do that. We went to school, half a day. And so as I entered, I guess it would have been the end of my junior and senior year of high school, I went to school half a day. I worked half a day. And then Javon was born. My son was born the first week of my senior year of high school, August 25th, 1998. He was born. And so that story continued of working half a day, going to school half a day. And then he and I left home the week that he came home. We came home from the hospital. Didn't really have a plan, I should say. I didn't really have a path. But as very quickly the turmoil began in our home and the chaos of what that was surrounded with, I knew that that's not the environment that I wanted for him. And we left. We stayed with his aunt for a few weeks until we could kind of get on our feet, and were able to move into our own apartment and went to school, went to work, and came home to be mom. And that was my senior year of high school.
Oh, I mean, I wish that I could know the 16-year-old, 17-year-old Tasha, because I think I would just be in awe of your strength and your clarity and your capacity to use such a big surprise like teen pregnancy as just a focusing rod to be I'm doing this for me and I'm doing this for him. And I'm thinking about the first week after an adult woman in a stable relationship gives birth. There's barely any moving around. Everything's crazy. And you were 16 and had the strength to be not on my watch. I don't know how this is going to work, but we're out of here, is just mind-blowing.
It is, truly. And as I reflect upon, and have had children later in life and know exactly what you're talking about, and think that back to myself at that point in time, in many ways, it feels like that was a different lifetime ago, that just feels in so many ways like an out-of-body experience, that it is my story, but it feels so separate, in thinking about my experience, now as an educator and seeing those things. I don't know where that came from. Determined. I think I was a hot mess express, but I was determined to find a better way. And I don't think I ever knew exactly what that would be or what that looked like or what having goals or plans other than we just had to keep going. I knew we just had to keep going, and I knew that's just what we had to do. So that's what we did.
The other thing that stands out to me about your story is the caution flag for all of us about those preteen super kids, the overperformers, that there are no cracks. That can be masking a lot of pain. And like, I imagine, you were sending like little flares, but barely, because it didn't feel safe. And when that didn't get anyone's attention, which is understandable, but it didn't get anyone's attention, then at 15, 16, you were like, okay, I'm burning down the house. Like this, I'm going to show all the signs that I'm in distress and that I'm not getting my needs met. It all makes so much sense. And it's a real reminder to us to just pay attention to those kids who overfunction in the face of their needs not being met.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. So I'm smiling so big because I had the pleasure of meeting your son and seeing like what a remarkable young man he is, and seeing y'all interact with each other just melted my heart. So I don't want to push the story forward and miss chunks, but I do want people to hear like what he's doing now and how poetic it is.
Absolutely. And I think with that and just kind of connecting the chunks, it was at the campus that I mentioned, that the other school that I'd gone to, that I had met an educator who truly, I would say, not only made an impact, but truly changed the trajectory of my life. That was our high school teen pregnancy social worker. Her name was Barb. Her name is Barb. And she is who truly just became that safe space and safe haven for me. And I think that was a pivotal moment. I know you ask about Javon's story, but I think she is such a key part of that, because in being that hope for me, getting through those hard times, I was able to not only graduate, from high school and graduate on time, as I made up, many credits and lots of loss and hardship. I graduated on time with my peers, and then went on to the local community college, went on to the local university. We just kept going. That story of just keep going, just keep trucking continued. And I think it's important, and maybe we can circle back to this later, but just it's important to think about what she gave. I've had the opportunity to tell her thank you and share this, great impact of how much, credit I give her for my story and his. And her words to me have been, I think you give me too much credit. And as I shared, at the convening, that I think what she's really saying is like, I was doing my job and I was just showing up, and I didn't have this. She couldn't fix. That's the end of it. The truth of it, the matter. She could not fix my circumstances. She couldn't fix the problems. And I know often as educators, that's what we want to do, right? We want to be able to fix. But what she did was gave me a safe, trusted connection, someone that believed in me when honestly I didn't believe in myself or know what to do, and then that hope. And I just have repeatedly shared with her that I even gave her a little bracelet that had the word hope in it, of just knowing that is the power of so much of the impact, because it was in that hope that I was able to go on to the next journeys, and college graduation, and many years later became an educator myself. And so working through that lens, that ripple effect of the hope that she instilled in me, and that belief and confidence then carried over into my son.
There's something so relatable and major about Barb, and the fact that she was just doing her job and she didn't feel like it was all she wished she could do. And yet she literally saved your life and put you on a trajectory where then you went on to literally saved the lives of so many kids. And so it's just like, I hope people listening can channel the fact that what they're doing may be more than enough, even on days when it feels like they aren't doing all they wish they could do.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I think that is something that's taken me years to really sink in to myself as well, as an educator or as a leader in the space of even how you're, supporting your own staff and the impact there. And, I had the opportunity to share this story. It was not planned, but there was a moment in time of when I knew it was time to, share my story in a professional context to my staff. I was serving in a principal role and was able to share that. And that really was the takeaway that I led with of, be the one. And it only takes one to make that impact in that trajectory. And it's sometimes the kids, I love the quote that says the kids who need love the most often ask for it in the most unloving ways. But sometimes it's the little things that make the most lasting impact. It's the genuine connection. It's the hug in the morning. It's the safe space. It's the consistency. Sometimes it's the routine. I think, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as educators to be all of the things, right? You always see the quotes that will say, as teachers, we're not just a teacher, we're a nurse, we're a mother, we're a father, we're a coach, we're a social worker, we're all of those things that, we want to be all, and we want to be all of the things for our kids when we see them in crisis or we see them in need. But I think it's important that we don't underestimate the impact of some of those other softer skills, if you will, and just the power of true connection and hope, especially when there's so much, potentially uncertainty going on in the outside world for our students of just what those types of things can provide for them and the lasting impact that it can create.
Yeah, you are that embodied. And then you've gone on to be that in the equation, the other part of the equation embodied over and over for students and adults. And share that quote again, if you don't mind.
There's a quote that's kids who need love the most kids who need love the most will ask for it in the most unloving ways.
Oh my goodness. I have been thinking so much about just how things are in our country right now and what's happening and what does it look like to be outraged but not be outrageous, and how do we approach it from a place of like love and unity and building something together that we can all be proud of, that doesn't leave people out. And I feel like your quote, of course it applies to kids. Sometimes it's easier to show up for kids acting in unloving ways than it is to show up for coworkers or people from a different political party, or, so I feel like that message of, trying to tune into what people need that are acting in unloving ways, kids, coworkers, adults, neighbors, is such a grounding force right now.
I wholeheartedly agree. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, tell everybody about your son and what he's doing and just how remarkably poetic that is.
It is such a full circle, if you will. Javon went on, of course, to graduate, went off to college, was a collegiate athlete, graduated with a degree in sports management, and has just finished his first year as a teacher and coach back in the school district in which we were, in which I was born and raised in. And it's incredible just to see it all come full circle. And I think back to, when, he's just in his element, in his space, and this is what he was born to do. I mean, he is absolutely in the right place and the right field and at the right time. But I also think back to when I mentioned Barb and that ripple effect of not only what that instilled in me, however many years and decades ago, but now the ripple effect and how that continues as myself as an educator and now him, of how many other students and kids and families and communities, that will continue to pour into. And it's just, I'm so proud of him. I'm just so proud.
A whole body chills. And just a reminder, even though we talked about it just a few minutes ago to the listeners, Barb was just doing her job. She was showing up, she was connecting, she was offering a sense of safety and a sense of hope. And that was what you needed. And now we've got you doing your work in the world. We've got your son doing his work in the world. Incredible.
Yes, it is. It truly is. And I think it is, as I mentioned, all of these years later, where I now see the dots and how it has come full circle, but also truly understand that not only the power and the magnitude of all of it, but just the opportunities that we have, each and every day as educators. I think that, as I share with him too, every interaction, every action is an opportunity, to deposit into that and to build that. And our kids need us now more than ever. The job is harder now more than ever, but it is, the power of these pieces that I think are things that are, like I mentioned before, that we do, sometimes at times, underestimate, and sometimes we just do them naturally. We just do that. And I think that's a lot of, Barb did those things naturally. That's who she was, what she believed in as an educator. But sometimes you don't get to see or know that impact. But I hope that all educators and everyone serving in the field hears that and feels that the power of that opportunity, that impact is there, whether you get the opportunity to see it or not. It's real.
Hi, I'm Katie Worden, producer of Oxygen for Educators. I want to spotlight our sponsor, TakiBox. TakiBox is an elementary school program that pairs innovative content with a tactile tool in daily practice to teach children to self-monitor their own words and actions and their responses to others. It's a proven tool that reduces behavior incidents by 66%. Through daily self-reflection, students build self-awareness, self-regulation, and meaningful connections. TakiBox is a light lift for teachers with a big impact on student well-being. Go to takibox.com to learn more and become a TakiBox district.
I feel like your experiences throughout your life have probably given you like a special lens, like almost like superhero glasses to sort of cut through a lot of the noise and just like see things maybe a little differently than some other folks that you're working with in all the different roles you've had. You've sat in so many different seats, both in social services and in education. What do you think you see because of everything you went through that might be obscured to other folks?
So that's a great question. Very thought-provoking, deep question. I think it's important to just see people. I think that's important, to see them for not only who they are and what their circumstances are, but what they can become. You have to see the potential and meet them where they are, but know that our role in that is to help get them to where they're going, or potentially help them just understand and see that there is hope. and things can change regardless of your circumstance or where you are. And I believe that wholeheartedly in each of the roles that I've served is something that I feel very passionate about. I think it's something my own staff would tell you too. I think is I will never forget, after I'd shared my story, a staff member had said, Tasha, one of my teachers came and said, Tasha, we always known you were a champion for kids. You know, we always were a champion for people, but now we know why.
Why?
And I think I think that's where I center myself. And, you know, at the time when you are leading through hard times or you're working through hard times, sometimes if we just center ourselves in the people, we're here for the people.
And in that capacity to see people and all the layers that they may be showing or not showing, it really is a superpower. And I get the sense that you're not threatened by it. I think maybe some other folks with different backgrounds might be scared to see all the different layers that might be behind someone's kind of first layer. But I feel like you're like, oh, I know it's there. and I'm not scared to see it. And then when I'm in, like, I'll speak for myself, when I'm in the presence of someone who's not scared to see all the layers that might be behind my first layer, then I feel safe to show that. And that gives me space to kind of like make sense of it and work through it and figure out how I want to move forward and who I want to be moving forward. Like, it's a really big deal that you can do that and that you help other people know how to do that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for seeing that in me. And to be honest, I've never thought about it in the lens of how you posed that question. But I definitely feel that in, you know, in my heart. And I think that I think we live in a space of heart work. And that's just so important.
Have you, I bet somebody's asked you this, but maybe not. Have you ever thought about, like, if you had the opportunity to have a conversation with like 16-year-old Tasha, what she would say to you and what you would say to her?
No, to be honest. I haven't thought about that. I think that brings emotion.
Yeah. Of course it does.
Yeah.
Is the emotion for you about what you would say to her or what it would be like for her to see how your life turned out, or both?
I would say probably both. You know, it's one of those I mentioned where in so many ways it feels like a lifetime ago. I think for, you know, up until a recent time, I would say within 2 years ago when I told the story for the first time, it's not a story that I've ever necessarily been ashamed of or embarrassed to tell. I think it's one that I've been guarded of, but it's one that I've been guarded of you spent your whole life trying to write a new story, and try to make your way out of it, trying to separate yourself of like, when you have a baby at 16, you are a statistic in the world and oftentimes that's not, a happy outcome or the narrative in which surrounds that of what that could mean or what that looks like. And so I think that my goal was always just to make it out. And I think it's, and that just ingrained in me of like, we got to keep going. We've got to keep going, and just I'm a very driven person. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. I'm always focused on the next. And I think that that's where it comes from. But I think now deeper into my career to have an opportunity, and by chance, it happened where I really just kind of stopped me dead in my tracks and said, wait a minute, this all connects and is so powerful. And so I think I'm still learning how to also allow myself back into, my story and make those connections of my previous story and my new story, and how do we merge those together. And I think there's a lot of power there, but not only in telling it, but also healing power in my own journey, of where
Oh
we're
my
at.
goodness, yes. Yes, and that's so relatable. Every single one of us, everyone listening has some version of that where we've like cut ourselves off from a previous version of ourselves because we felt like we had to, and maybe we did. Like maybe that was absolutely crucial for you to just focus on that forward motion out and create a little separation. And now you're at a place, as is true for all of us in different versions, where integrating it all is the next, like that's available to you now because you're out of that survival state.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And truly, it is so relatable. I think every one of us can be like, not my exact story, but this is the part of me that if I could allow for more integration instead of a that was then, this is now. I love your use of the word power. Like it would change my work in the world because it would be coming from this like swell instead of this, like I picture this sort of like powerful swell when it's all integrated versus almost like this car that's kind of running on fumes, like so well intentioned, but it's not the same power source as when we allow and accept our whole story. Whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it takes effort and intentionality and vulnerability, in a lot of ways. And
yeah,
I think it's something I'm still learning how to navigate.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. Like, I feel like probably it's a lifelong journey for all of us. Like it's an onion kind of deal.
Absolutely.
It's also, your story is also, I mean, you're so gracious. You wouldn't say this, but I'll say it. Like, it's a good reminder to us to remember that there are people on the other side of any judgment we have and hold, and are like, whatever might be guiding us to be judgmental about the situation might be cutting off oxygen to that person to be fully themselves and to embrace their whole story. So like that gives me a lot to think about of like, are there things that I think I know, that I think I feel so strongly about, that might be impacting another person's ability to be fully themselves because of some social norm or social judgment or whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely. When I think back, to like 15-year-old Tasha, I recently found my report card from that year. Why I still have that, or why I've come across it at this point in time, is powerful in itself. Just was a meant to be thing. But as I looked at it, and I knew, and I mentioned, my grades weren't good. I wasn't going to class. But I think even looking at my own report card kind of took my breath away a little bit, looking at that even through the lens of, as an educator now, of, that how badly I was failing. My entire first semester of my junior year, I earned one credit, just one. I want to say 28 absences and, one class. And just looking at that, I know, as we think about that as educators, there's a lot of narratives that can be told about that, or interventions that can be provided for that, right? If we look at our MTSS or RTI teams and we say, hey, this kid needs some intervention. She needs academic help. She needs, Saturday school to make up some lost credits, looking at my attendance. I mean, there are a lot of things on that surface level. And there's some pieces there that could look like bad behavior. There's pieces there that could look like I just didn't care, and I think that's something that we will hear, what do we do when the child doesn't care, or what do we do? But what I really think is so important is that we take the time to dig into the root, back to connecting to what we're seeing on the surface or what that's looking like with the person in front of us. But are we digging deep enough to really understand the root of that, the root of the behavior, the root of the change, the root of the anger, or whatever that emotion that it is displaying? Because in order to really be able to impact and help, we have to understand that. And I think that that's a opportunity that we don't want to miss. I think if we could have been prescribed academic interventions, but that wasn't what I needed. I had been a high performing student, but if you were to look at that on paper, if you were to look at that outwardly in performance, if you were to look at even those at-risk indicators, of what that might look like, all of that told a story. But what was the need there? It was truly human connection. It was someone to see me, someone to believe in me. And I think that that's so many of the kids that are sitting in our classrooms and schools today. It's also so many of our adults and educators too.
Yes. I think it's Tina Payne Bryson that calls it chasing the why, which I just love, because it's infinitely more interesting as a professional and infinitely more hopeful. When I was a family therapist, we used to talk about holding hope until you can hold hope for yourself. And I feel like Barb did that for you. When I imagine the arc of your story that you told, I imagine you had hope that perfectionism and this just outsized drive that took you so far, and maybe around that 14, 15, it started waning. Like, I can't do this on my own steam. So then, all the flares go up, and then to have your son and Barb show up at just the right moment in just the right ways. And just a reminder to the listeners, nothing heroic, just intentional connection, intentional seeing the person, intentional carrying the hope if they can't hold the hope for themselves.
Yes.
And we can all do that. We can do that.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. We can.
You are one of the most connected to their why, purpose-driven people I've ever talked to. So to me, you've got that on lock. What do you have to do in terms of daily rituals, practices that keep you kind of fueled so you can live into that work? Anything?
So I think that's something that I'm still learning. I think we call that self-care. I'm still learning. And that it's hard. I really am fueled by the work. I think that is a big piece of it. Like my goal is always to be able to make an impact. And when I feel that I'm making an impact and that I'm living in my why, that really does energize me. It fuels me. That is my passion and my why. But I also, the 16-year-old self that just had to keep going, that still lives in me. And I am am also prone to burnout of I will just give and give and give and give and give and do and push and push and push. And I struggle to find, there's balance, that magic word, that balance piece, or that just integration piece of being sure that I do rest, and that I do, take care of my personal self, so that I am able to continue to pour in and fuel, kind of moving forward. And that, I think that's something that I continue to have to remind. My husband is a good reminder of that. He's like, just sit still, just let that sink in for a minute, and I think that that's a big, an ongoing piece, but truly at the end of the day, the work in itself is really my why that fuels me in a great degree.
You can feel it. I mean, you can feel it in your presence that is like a recursive loop. It's not just draining you, it's like also feeding you. And I also love your answer, because I can picture so many people going, oh, me too, thank God. Like I'm also still working on it, and I can't quite, turn off that engine of just, go, 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 go. And one of the things we're hoping for from this podcast is just to make the argument that even the micro moments, anything that we do to regulate our own nervous system and to be in deep connection with people who fuel us, then allows us to be in the world doing the work that creates those hope bridges and all the things you talked about. And my hunch is that 2025 on, it's going to become less and less negotiable for people to get into a new relationship with their own mental health if they're going to be an effective long-term counterforce to some of what we're seeing in the country and the state and the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you agreed graciously to come talk to us, was there anything you wanted to make sure you covered or said or that we talked about?
I truly am just grateful for the opportunity to be here and share, my personal story, but in that, what I hope that we heard is not just a story, but that opportunity there, that opportunity for the impact and for how at a time as educators, where I mentioned the job is harder than ever, and there's so much on our plates as educators, that we understand the true power of some of those little things, if you will, because it's those things that are transformative for our kids. And I think that that's the foundation of our educational system as a whole. I know that we're in the profession to educate, but we have to be able to make those connections and build those bridges, as you mentioned, to really be able to maximize that. And so as we continue to put pressure on ourselves and we continue to add, things to our to-do plates, I hope that we continue to prioritize the power of connection, and that we see the kids for who they are, or our families and our communities. We see them for who they are, and know that we can be the change. We can help to transform that story. I think that we all carry our own baggage. We all carry our own little backpacks. We're all fighting battles that no one else knows anything about. But I think just remembering that doesn't define us, that helps shape us. And you come into the lives of others for a reason. And I believe that reason is to help shape. And that can be in those small things. And that is my hope for today. And, being vulnerable and sharing some very personal things, and even getting emotional today. I didn't expect that. But I think that that's the underlying hope, my hope there.
It's like you always say, be the one.
Be the one.
Like, look for ways to be the one, which, by the way, excellent book title, and I will be pre-ordering when you put it out. So thank you,
Let's do it.
Thank you so much. The perfect note to end on. Grateful you're in the world. Glad we have daughters going to college at the same place. So I'm going to just keep finding ways for us to zig and zag into each other's lives.
Absolutely. It's another example of just a full circle kind of moment. But thank you so much, Michelle. It's been a true honor to know you and to be here today. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Tasha. All right, Chris, we are back and ready to unpack what stood out to us from that interview. You go first.
It's hard for me to unpack this interview because I felt like the whole entire conversation was such oxygen, just the story and her, the whole thing. I thought about when we interviewed Alex Vesely, Viktor Frankl's grandson, and I made the comment that it was a love letter to educators. I feel like her whole life is a love letter to educators. And I'm grateful that she's openly sharing. But one thing I felt like as I watched it, and I realized when we saw her on stage at the TCSS conference, it was the same. You almost feel like you're watching art be created because she's so open about connecting the dots of her life and integrating her old story with her new story. Really just inspiring.
That's such a good point. It's the willingness to let us in on her own making sense of how all those things connect that truly feels sacred.
And it feels like it's happening in the moment. Like as she's answering questions and saying these things out loud, she's having aha moments, and we're getting to watch the new her be created.
Mm-hmm. And simultaneously, we see ourselves in her journey, even though the details are different for everyone. I do think it's almost a permission structure to do our own integrating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was going to hold this, but if you don't mind, I'd love to say this now because it makes sense in the moment. But I made a note that the bravery of the moment that she stood up and felt compelled to tell her story to her staff was just remarkable. And I've been reading The Way Home, Discovering the Hero's Journey to Wholeness. It's a Ben Catt book. Have you ever read this?
Mm-mm.
But I watched the interview and then I read this quote and it just made me think of her. It's a quote from W.H. Murray. Concerning all acts of initiative or creation, there is one elementary truth, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man would have believed would come his way. I feel like her standing up and saying that, telling that story that first time is what got her to that stage, is what got her to have the conversation with you. It's what's going to get the book to be written. So it's just lovely. I'm grateful for her bravery.
Yeah, same. You mentioned it's a love letter, like her whole life is a love letter. On a more micro scale, her whole life is a love letter to Barb and all of the Barbs in the world. The social worker at her school that kind of gave her that hope line. It's a love letter to Javon and her other children. It's a love letter to resilience. The way she talks about what hope did to kind of get her from a spiral to, moving her life forward, it made it clear to me, like, how unfluffy hope is. It's got, it gets thrown around, but the way she described it, it felt like this like force, like a force of nature, nothing fluffy about it, that carried her from one trajectory to another. And I thought the most after her interview about the fact that Barb didn't feel like she was doing enough. Mm-hmm. And it still had that impact. And how many educators across the country right now do not feel like they are a match for the level of disruption, the level of pain, the level of depression, anxiety, need for making academic gains, all the things. And yet the great likelihood that what they are doing is enough and is creating that force of nature hope in the lives of so many. I just thought this story put that in Technicolor, and I hope they can rest easy.
I made a note of her exact wording. It's important that we don't underestimate the impact of softer skills and the power of true connection and hope, especially when there's so much uncertainty going on in the outside world for our students, or just what those types of things, connection and hope, can provide for them and the lasting impact it can make. Love how
there
she
it
worded
is.
it. Yeah.
What else?
Okay, so might make you uncomfortable. Sorry in advance, but I texted you after I watched this interview that I thought that was the best interview I've seen you do. And so I thought a lot about what and why because I felt like I learned a lot from you, and you showed a lot of yourself in this interview. And I think it's the superpower that you identified in Tasha, that she truly sees people. And I think she was doing that with you. Even when she opened in the beginning, she talked about your presence and what your presence does for her. And I think you showed up a little bit differently because of that superpower that she has.
Oh, that's fascinating. It was like it happened in real time and impacted how I showed up, which gave a little bit of a window into what it looks like to be in her life all along the way, to all the students, all the teachers, everyone she's worked with. That is fascinating. Like a little microcosm.
Yeah, she's just making everybody better as she moves through the world.
Yeah, I can see that. I forgot we were doing a podcast. Like, it really felt just like we were having the truest of heart-to-heart exchanges. And I can see how she must move through the world, opening that up in everyone.
And I loved that she could answer the question with those words and know that she sees people. And she had one of those aha moments when she was talking to you and she answered the question, because she specifically said, I've never thought about that before. And she said, I think it's important to see people, to see them for not only who they are and what their circumstances are, but who they can become. I loved that.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
Stop copying me.
I know. I can't at this point.
Blueberry shirt and everything.
Kind of connected to that one was how she said that she felt like everything she had been through made it crystal clear to her to see the opportunities that we have in every interaction, that every single interaction or action, moment to moment, day to day, is an opportunity to be that Barb, or that Tasha, to be that person that sees you for who you are, for who you might become. That's so powerful. I loved how she called it heart work. This is heart work. Can I left turn us?
Sure.
You already alluded to this a little bit, but the way she described kind of needing to put a certain part of her in the background while she just went into forward motion to get out of a bad situation, and that it's just very recent that she started looking at how to claim her story and integrate. That was so powerful to me, and just has implications for every person on the planet. And as she was talking, I kept thinking of this poem that I had heard. I couldn't remember exactly what, and I went and did rabbit trail to find it. Can I read it to you?
Yes, I love it when you break out poetry.
Well, I'm reading it to you. I'm reading it to listeners, and I'm reading it to Tasha. And it's called I Have Been 1,000 Different Women, and it's by Emery Hall. Make peace with all the women you once were. Lay flowers at their feet. Offer them incense and honey and forgiveness. Honor them and give them your silence. Listen, bless them, and let them be, for they are the bones of the temple you sit in now, for they are the rivers of wisdom leading you toward the sea.
Ooh, that got a little tear.
Isn't that beautiful?
Beautiful.
I love it so much, and it feels like a perfect encapsulation to me of the work Tasha's doing right now, and that is open to all of us.
Love that. So there's something that you said that really made me think. When you guys had the conversation around her quote, the kids who need love the most often ask for it in the most unloving ways. And you applied it to adults. That really got me thinking. I was glad you made that, or just brought up that point. I checked myself on several things I'd done in the past 24 hours over that one.
It softened something in me toward people that I experience as unloving when she presented that. That's hard to sustain. I do think it's like reps in the gym to develop the capacity to see unloving, acting people with soft eyes, with gentle eyes, with a spirit of generosity, because everything in the world tells us to do the opposite. Everything in the world tells us to buck up and get into a survival state and vilify them. I don't know. I'm never going to conquer that. It does not come naturally to me, but I accept the work. I accept the work of it, and she helped me.
I don't think you would mind me saying this, but as you know, I've been divorced for 13 years, but co-parenting and friends, good friends with my kid's dad, my ex-husband. But there have been times, I'm sure there will be more, where he pushes my buttons, and a lot of people can't, but he can. And I always tell myself, he's my greatest teacher, because he can push my buttons, and it gives you those opportunities to work that muscle and try. And so, yeah, maybe that line will help you.
So good. Yes. It's interesting because I was talking with someone today who helped me completely reframe how much I get overwhelmed and sort of sucked into the bigger picture and the hurts of the world. And it kind of, the way I was framing it was, I've got to figure out how to, contribute in a way I can there, but also not disappear from my own life. And she said, what if all that chaos is giving you access to parts of you that need healing or need shifting or need whatever, and it's not something to hold at arm's length or feel like it's getting in the way of your growth and development. It's actually a path to what's next for you in terms of growth and development. And that helped me so much. It's kind of like you're saying about anything that challenges us being our greatest teacher. It illuminates for us what our work is. That flipped things on their head for me. I still haven't quite integrated it.
That's going to make me think. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
The other
it's gonna
thing
make
you
me
said in relation to this that I made a note of, and I'll continue really trying to remember this and brand it on my heart, but you said judgment is cutting off oxygen to another person and not allowing them to embrace their whole story. You said that in your interview.
God, that's
powerful.
so smart.
You're so wise in your blueberry shirt.
Okay, say it again, because that is something I think we're all working on, both sides of it. What is it? Say it again.
Judgment is cutting off oxygen to another person and not allowing them to embrace their whole story. Gold star for you.
Or to Tasha for opening up the kind of nervous system safety where that type of deep exploration happens in real time.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what was so fun to watch.
Yeah.
A thought that I had, I love how she talked about her rebellion. And she also mentioned, I don't know if she used these words, but it's clear she's an overachiever. And I thought, well, how great that she overachieved at rebellion and went big, because I think her rebellion saved her life in some ways.
Yes. I mean, it 100%. That was the flares. It was her saying, I've tried everything else and no one sees how distressed I am. So I'm going to try this now. And she went big.
She went big. She sure did. She does not go small.
One credit.
And I've heard you talk about that a lot, about the flares and those kinds of actions are sending out signals. And I don't think that we think that way normally. Or not. That's not our first thought. Our first thought is, what is wrong with you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I appreciate having learned that from you over the last few years.
I think I've shared before Tara or Tara Brock's. She says that she has the practice of looking at unloving behavior or bad behavior or just something that she has a reaction to. She's developed the practice of looking at that person and asking herself, where does it hurt in that person? And it helps her see that whatever's coming out is coming from a place of hurt. And if she can be curious about where it hurts, and the answer doesn't matter, it just softens her into seeing behavior as a flare, like you're saying.
I love that.
Isn't that powerful?
It's very powerful. And she talked about digging deep enough to understand the root of the behavior. What's the underlying need? And she referred, in her case, it was human connection, someone to see me, to believe in me.
Barb.
If that's not inspiring for listeners, Barb. And everybody listening is doing that daily, no doubt.
They're doing that daily, and it makes this much of a difference. It's that big of a gift, even if you feel like you're not doing enough. That's huge.
Huge. What else did you have on your list?
Well, I think we should close with what we got from Tasha, which just is the most beautiful thing.
Yes, it is. So you asked her, have you ever thought about what you would say to 16-year-old Tasha and what today's Tasha would say to her if you had the chance to talk to her? And she didn't have an answer, but she texted us later and gave us her answer. So we wanted to be sure that we shared it. So me to my 16-year-old self, thank you. Thank you for fighting hard, for never settling, for dreaming big. Thank you for creating a better life and future for both you and Javon. My 16-year-old self to me now. And this is a message to everybody listening. You made it. Don't forget to breathe and enjoy today, but also continue to follow your heart and purpose in life. Continue to serve and know that you are here for a reason.
What a gift to know Tasha. And what a gift to share a little bit of her story, and hopefully listeners will fall in and pre-order her book.
Let's do it.
We'll all pre-order Be the One, or whatever she decides to call it. But
Be the One.
Huge thanks to her, and huge thanks to you, Chris, and of course to our producer, Katie Warden. We will see everybody next week. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Oxygen for Educators. Please like, share, and follow, and if inclined, leave us a 5-star review so that we can keep making content for you. Let us hear from you if you know someone we should interview or a topic we should cover.